Mend number 17, potentially, taking a couple takes. We've lost track, which is a good thing because it means we've been doing this for a little bit. But today we have a good friend, Caleb Munske, a buddy from Liverpool High School back in upstate New York of mine. And we were just talking about Caleb, you are 2 years younger than me, had a brother in my grade, and then had another brother 2 years above, and loosely all connected through soccer one way or another. A little bit more on the recreational side for me, but I'll give you a chance to kind of introduce yourself.
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to say this is fun for me because, as you know, I'm usually on the other end of these episodes. I'm usually the one grilling people with questions and asking all the difficult things. So I'm excited to kind of be the recipient of some of those questions and get a little honest and truthful with myself. It's been, I don't want to say quite a while since I've been honest and truthful with myself, but kind of quite a while since I've actually had to vocalize it. So it's a good refresher for me to remind myself who I am and why we do this type of podcast on mental health and psychology in general. But a little bit about me. You kind of mentioned some of the most important things in my life of soccer and my brothers. Aside from my girlfriend, I'm a pretty simple dude. I really enjoy mental health and got serious in it around 2001, but we can jump into my story a little bit later if you'd like. But I run a podcast, or it's more than a podcast now. I'm excited about that. We've grown into a community. It's called Make Mental, and we just make it a priority to keep mental health at the forefront of our day and really go about just shining a light in the world. So that's where I am right now. And then I always like to end with my boring day job, although it's what pays the bills. I'm the efficiency center coordinator now, a little upgrade in position since we spoke last time, Nick, at the Bonadio Group in upstate New York. I say the boring day job because it's an accounting job, but like I said, it pays the bills. So it lets me do things like this.
Well, congratulations on the upgrade. That is awesome to hear.
Yes.
So I'm sure
a little bit more nerdy. That's all it means. A little bit deeper into the nerd world.
That's all right. Our first introduction to Rochester when they had accepted Students Day is they actually gave a speech and said every single one of you is a nerd, and that's a good thing. So I will pass that.
Yeah, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's so funny to see the contrast in my life going from very extroverted person to then at a desk for 8 hours a day. So,
yes. And on the point of your life, and you talking a little bit about your story, one of the questions I actually had that I think will line up well with that is, so you're quite passionate about what you do. You've been quite passionate as long as I've known you in whatever it is that you're doing, especially on the field. I have many memories of you standing up for your team and for yourself to be referees. It's just a lot of fun. We appreciate that. But where does this passion come from, and kind of maybe touch on a little bit of that story that you mentioned?
Fantastic question to start off. A lot of the passion for me, I think, was kind of inherited. I always look up to my two older brothers. I think you could tell. And when I was the smaller, younger brother in stature, they stood up for me. So I felt like it was right to return the favor once I ended up being the tallest one. It was just kind of an unsaid responsibility, that brothers have. But really anything I do, I find passion in, and it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't matter if it's on the field in soccer, in the classroom, at my job, in my relationships. I just don't see a purpose in doing something if it doesn't bring you joy or passion. And with that being said, you obviously do some things that are necessary that you have to do that don't bring you joy and passion, but at least and can sort out those things. That, I mean, granted, tax season is not something that brings a lot of people passion, although it just passed. It's just something you got to do, but at least right? And if you kind of start to categorize your life like that, like, all right, I don't like this, so I can avoid these things. I don't like these things, but they're the necessary evil. And then I really love these things. That's how you can continue to fill your cup and really find what gives you joy. So mental health for me was always in the background for the longest time. And I don't mean in the background like I thought it was some fictional thing that only happened to other people, although that's what it seemed like at times when life is going well. It feels like it can never happen to you. But there is such thing as positive mental health, obviously. So it happens to you every day. But mental health for me really took effect when the narrative got personal negatively. because I have been blessed my entire life, just upper middle class family, never really hurting or wanting for anything, but also not really on the flip side. Like we don't fly a private jet around and things of that nature, which again, in all seriousness, comes with its own set of stresses. So I don't want to dismiss that. But I think it happened so quickly. And in our episode on Make Mental Podcast, we talked about COVID being just this weird paradox of a phenomenal time for some people. And can I swear? Is that okay?
You're good, man. Yeah, you're good.
Okay. I forget to ask at the beginning, but and for some people, the shittiest time. And it was everything from people starting up businesses to people losing family members. Like there's that huge juxtaposition, and that's what it was for me, right? It was both good and bad. Like, I mean, it was the best of times and it was the worst of times. Probably one of the most famous quotes from a fantastic novel, but it truly was. And COVID allowed me to start a podcast, some really great people, but it also brought out all of my insecurities and basically left me in room for myself for 2 weeks. And you learn a lot about yourself in those 2 weeks. But to get back to your point of passion and mental health specifically, I saw a need within the community that I belonged to at the time, which was the soccer team at Oswego. Was the most prominent community in my life in 2018 to 2023 even. And I'd be careful with words because they truly matter. There was mental health resources available to us. We just didn't know how to get them. Right. Or we were scared of them, or we didn't want to be seen as weak, or I mean, you name it. In a negative fashion, it was there. So I think my on-field experience with an anxiety attack was very good and very bad at the same time. And I think we can leave it right there for now and keep going.
I want to take a minute there. I think something that we've talked about, something that I feel Mike is pretty passionate on, is that idea that you mentioned, that those resources are there, but maybe we aren't as aware of them. I'll give Mike a chance to kind of expand on that because you're involved here too.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like I'm probably in the same boat as you, Caleb, because to your point of, or I won't even, while it is a valid point that most people probably experience, I take it as far as saying that it's not the complete truth. There might be some truth to it, everybody's individual truth, but not wanting to feel weak, not wanting to seem like you are unable to carry your load, that if you reach out for help, you won't find it. And I say I'm in the same boat probably because I experienced a lot of those same things during my time in school. And for a long, long time, I thought myself that if I didn't pick up my cross, carry my burden, and make this journey on my own or without soliciting help from other people. I won't even say from someone else, from other people, from the resources that I had available to me, that I was weak, that it was an incompetency, or in inadequacy, whatever you want to call it, in myself that I was unable to handle. Further down that road, I then realized I could go so much further. I will go so much further by utilizing those resources and tapping into the community that you have created, or that is trying to surround you and help out. And Nick played a phenomenal role in that. When we met at Fleet Feet, one of our first conversations was about mental health. And in my head, I'm like, oh my God, like, who is this guy? Like, where did he come from? What is he about to talk about? But his approach to it was so authentic. It was having a genuine conversation, wanting to get to know me. And at the time, and even still now, deep in his studies of figuring out how these things, sport, life, whatever it is, how they work together to create the best possible, we'll call it, foundation for somebody to be successful. So I totally get that. And I have slowly developed a passion for it. Nick starting this podcast and wanting to talk about it. Again, I say it all the time, like, this is Nick's baby. this is his child that he kind of got started, and now I've become I've started to want to do this. At first Nick was like, "Hey Mike, you want to jump on here with me and help?" And I was like, "Absolutely, I will." But now I feel in my heart like this is something good. This is what we're doing for others, and it's helped me a lot too. Just being able to express myself, talk about some of the feelings I'm having, some of the things that I may or may not be going through. So I totally get it. I totally get it. And Nick, again, I'll say it over and over again. Thank you. Thank you for starting those conversations, for starting this podcast. This is an awesome platform that we have, and I hope we can continue to utilize it to put good out there, to help people grow and understand the resources that they do have to help them.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and I think one thing that both of you guys kind of hit on throughout is so maybe the resources weren't as available, but I would say from what I know about both of you guys have both had really strong connections and support from your families. Mike and Caleb, both a bunch of brothers, kind of for each of you guys. And so I'm curious, like, maybe growing up with, I'm going to call it like a built-in connection and somebody to kind of challenge you. Mike, you're a little bit older than some of your things, and then Caleb on the younger end. What was it like growing up with that connection and being able to challenge yourself with your family and get that support at the same time?
Yeah, Caleb, I'll let you tackle it first.
First, I just want to agree with Mike and say this is a fantastic platform, and it's kind of neat to see podcasts like this start popping up all over the place, because it reminds you that there are resources there. And while we might not be certified professionals, we still have an experience that if someone needs to draw from it, they can feel free to do so.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so growing up with siblings was quite the experience. Like I kind of hinted at earlier, they're the only ones who are allowed to beat up on me, and I'm the only one who's allowed to beat up on them. That's kind of how it goes. and unless you've proven yourself to be a brother. I will say there are certain friends who it's like, all right, you can shit on them. Like, I know you're just kidding, but there are certain people where you're like, hey, back off. And then it is kind of fun being the biggest as the youngest, because they're kind of just like, oh shit, here comes the little brother, and he's kind of crazy. So like, let's not mess with him. But little they know, I'm not that crazy. It's all an act. But growing up with a family that supports you is twofold. In a way, it is. And it's so funny that this juxtaposition keeps coming up. It's a fantastic experience, and it's also sometimes difficult. I'm just going to tell the truth. Like you always have someone to fall back on, whether it's your mom, dad, brother or sister. I just happen to have brothers in this case. Even my grandparents, like my cousins. I know that if I picked up the phone right now, there's probably only 2 people that might be at work and wouldn't answer. The rest of them would pick up in a heartbeat. And it wouldn't matter if I just wanted to say hello or if I had a genuine struggle that I was going through. Mm-hmm. With that being said, it's overwhelming at times, because again, don't get me wrong. I'd rather have it this way. I'd rather have someone be over caring than not care at all. But there are times where it's just kind of like, you do just want to be left alone. You don't necessarily want to be asked if you're okay 24/7. Sometimes you feel like because you share everything with your family so often, there are certain things you want to keep to yourself, but then you might feel guilty for keeping them to yourself. Like there's this happy medium that I've come to find through different therapies and different self meditations that I've been doing, where I've been able to find a balance and realize that, okay, I'm not 12 anymore. I'm not 8 anymore. Like I don't have to share every single situation I go through. And it doesn't mean the person, in this case, my brothers and my parents, isn't going to love me any less, isn't going to think of me any differently just because I don't decide to share something with them anymore. That's something that I had to learn, that I wasn't a mean person for keeping certain things to myself. But it's definitely been a blessing to grow up with a family that, like I said, I probably should take those words back. Even those 2 people that are working would either text me back or pick up and just be like, yo, I'm working. Is everything okay? So it's been a blessing for sure.
No, I'm gonna double down on that. It is such a blessing. Again, very similar to you, Caleb. I have 3 younger brothers. Really, I take that back. No, I'm sorry. So I do have 3 younger brothers. I also have an older half brother and older half sister. So my sister is the oldest of all 6 of us. She lives in Texas. My older brother lives here in Cincinnati, and then my three younger brothers, two are here in Cincinnati, and then one is in the Air Force. But I grew up primarily with my three younger brothers, so my dynamic was a little bit different than yours until you became the biggest and you kind of felt like the older brother. But I've always, for the most part, been the biggest out of my brothers. And Nick, we've probably briefly touched on this, but I don't think I've ever spoken it publicly, especially like on a podcast or something as public as what we have going on. But my family dynamic was very, I'll say, strained, or is it a strained? Is that the word? It might be, whatever it is. Growing up, just because my dad, even to this day, he has struggled with drug addiction, for long before even I was around. And so, talking with my grandma, talking with a couple family members, just to figure out some of that family history has helped me just to open my mind to, hey, like, where did this start? Where did this come from? What is this rooted in, and where has it trickled down to? So for me, that dynamic, being the oldest, has always come with a lot of responsibility, just because, having to help my mom out. My brothers and I, we were 96, 98, 2000, and in 2005. So there's a little bit of a gap between, the last two. But for the most part, we're not terribly far apart, but we still do have, different, I'll say, eras that each of us grew up in that create unique personalities. I say all that because it created a very, very different love language for each and every one of us. And being the oldest, at times, it felt like a burden. It felt difficult because I felt like, while I am the oldest, I want to be a kid. I also have to carry some of these responsibilities of having eyes on me all the time, having to handle, what is more mature and adult like responsibility, having to at least feel like, and it probably wasn't the truth all the time, but having to feel like I'm put together well all the time. Like, there's no room for mistakes for myself. And that is probably something I told myself that wasn't necessarily true. Like, I could have made as many mistakes as I wanted. My mom would have loved me the same. My dad would have loved me the same. My grandparents, like, all that would have happened. But seeing and wanting more for my brothers, my family, like, those were some of the responsibilities that I felt like I had to take on. But then jumping back to, everybody just loves differently. Again, I wouldn't trade it for the world. We all are so unique, and it creates such a fun family dynamic. Like, every time we are together, it is nothing like having a house full of brothers that you get to, like you said, you get to beat up on. It's out of love. You get to tackle. You get to joke around with, like that. If you have all brothers, like, you understand it. If you don't, I don't even know how to talk about it enough for somebody to get it. I imagine it's probably the same way with sisters, but Caleb, you're right. Like, I wouldn't trade it for the world. I love it the way it is, and I hope that, in some sense, like, you all can feel what we're talking about, and you all at least, or talk to somebody about, like, what is that experience like, having that many siblings, having all boys or all girls, or what has that dynamic been like? Um, but yeah, it was at a young age, sometimes super daunting, and I don't want to do this anymore. Somebody else here, I'll trade you. I'll trade you my birthright. Okay, you could be the oldest. Like, I'll gladly take a back seat. And other times it's like, hey, I love it here. I love being the leader, if you want to say that, and showing y'all how this life is meant to be lived.
Yeah, I just want to say too that I never once felt like I was the oldest. It was just fun to be bigger and have
Fair
a little
enough.
bit of, like,
Fair
I could
enough.
hold my own ground now. Like, I always, to Nick's point in the beginning, even though it was recreational soccer, I was always playing 2 to 4 years up, and everything I did, I was hanging
Oh,
out with
man.
the older kids. They would come up, they would hang out at our house, and really it was awesome because I would lose, and I'd have to learn how to lose without getting angry and
Right.
trying to tackle my
Right.
brothers, and they just brushed me off. I think I hit my brother with a broom once. Sorry, Jake. But, like, it teaches you, again, how to lose with grace. But then when you
Yeah.
come back down to your own age group, you're at the top. You're one of the better ones, and that's also a cool place to be when you
Very
look
true.
back at it. But as a little brother, I think it's tough to see someone else's perspective if you haven't lived it. And it really is. They can describe it to you 100 times, and you can say, you can have empathy, but until you live it, you don't know. I don't think I've ever lived what my older brothers went through, but I think I can see it happen between my oldest brother and my middle brother, and then my middle brother and me. And that's a really cool dynamic. Is the younger brother is we don't expect our older siblings to be perfect. We just expect them to be there. Because at the end of the day, like, you're going to lose your grandparents, you're going to go through breakups, you're going to lose friends. Your brothers or your sisters are going to be the people that are there with you for your entire life. And
Right.
especially if you're the youngest brother, I mean, they're there forever. You're born into the world with them there. And that's just how it goes until your time's up. So it's cool to have that, like you said, that dynamic. But I don't think I ever expected perfection out of my brothers.
That's
And
good.
holy crap, that I have a lot to live up to. I hope I did my best, but that was a pressure of mine, kind of like as you, Mike, as the older brother, felt a responsibility to set the standard. It was taxing at times to try and uphold that standard or even raise the bar, because like I said, if I go into something wholeheartedly, I want to leave it in a better spot than when I entered.
Right.
And
Right.
trying to uphold that family name, for whatever family you're in, is difficult.
Yeah, I want to follow up, or I have a follow up question for that. So, as the youngest, what
Mhm.
is a memory that you have, or a time you can remember where you you maybe really felt that pressure of being the youngest sibling, and hey, like, I'm the last one. I If I mess this up, then there are no do-overs. Like, this is my chance to show my older brothers, my mom, my dad, that, like, hey, I have this together. I'm responsible enough to do this. Like, I can do it on my own. Whatever that looks like for you. What do you have any memories of that?
Ooh, I have a ton.
Okay.
Um, like I said, it took me a long time to come to terms with why a lot of things happened in my life the way they did. Um, Specifically good things. I used to think, like, why do I deserve this? Like I don't work for anything. It just comes to me naturally. But I truly forget the work that I put into things to get things done, until I just kind of strip it down and count the hours and the days and the repetitions. But specifically soccer, I think, has been, and athletics has been the thing where I kind of felt like I had to prove myself again, playing up from such a young age. I think I started playing soccer when I was 3, so 21 years ago. And I was the annoying little brother that just tagged along to all the soccer games and
Hmm. Hmm.
screamed on the sidelines and threw a ball on the field when they were playing. So they were just kind of like, all right, put him out there. Like, come on, if he wants to play. And ever since then, it was just pure love for the sport. But it did
That's
come
awesome.
with its pressure, because both my older brothers growing up, fantastic athletes. I mean, I know you're a fantastic track athlete, but for soccer you have to be able to run as well. So we all did track in our off season, and they can't get in trouble for this now. They used to, in the high school track, they used to. This is funny. I'll air some dirty laundry. They used to go on. They were long distance. We were all a mile or longer, all of us, for
Okay.
track,
Yeah.
and we used to run around the neighborhood in high school to train, just long distance runs. And they would run to our house, which is about 7 to 10 minutes away from the high school, play FIFA, so the soccer video game, for about an hour, dump water on their head or jump in the pool to make it look like they sweat, and then run back to the high school so they didn't have to train. And then they would show up and they would qualify for sectionals. So I was like, damn, if they can go home and just basically goof off and then still qualify, like, not world record times, nothing like
Right.
people are like, oh my God, you're getting a scholarship, but like enough to qualify for sectionals. That's pretty good.
It
Or they
is.
would run the hurdles once and do it. Like, they were just good athletes. So I always felt like, crap, I have to live up to that standard. So whatever they did, I had to do it better. I had to replace sex records in middle school on the what was it, the 1500 at the time. It was like 4:42, I think, was my time in 8th grade, and it was just like I puked after the race because I needed to do better. And I wanted to show them that, like, hey, I can hang with you. Like, it doesn't matter that I'm younger. And then that just continued all the way through. They were captains of their high school teams respectively. I followed suit. They went up captain, or at least in the conversation, for their college teams. I followed suit. Jake's been captain of semi-professional soccer team after college. I mean, I led the way and then followed suit for that again. So it was just kind of cool. As much as it was like, it wasn't competing against them as much as it was competing with them. Like, you set the bar, I'm going to raise it, so then you have
Yeah.
to raise it again. But it definitely was a lot of pressure looking back at it. But again, like, I wouldn't change it for the world. It's one of those things where it shaped me. It led me to this very podcast, honestly. And I don't know. I look back on it with a lot of grace and thankfulness, because there's plenty of other pressures out there that I could have had. So I'll take this one.
Yeah. Yeah. Nick, I know you got a ton of questions lined up. I want to ask one more, and then look, it's all you. You got it. But Caleb, I do want to ask, again, being the youngest, when did you find or create your own path? When did you find, like, this is my thing, this is my niche? Because you just mentioned, like, you followed suit for a while, and I tell you, I get it. Like, that's what the youngest kind of does. You kind of were either drug along, this is where we have to go because that's where they're doing, or they were responsible for you, they had to take you. But when did you decide, like, this is what I want to do, this is what I'm invested in, this is where my heart is, and this is the path I'm going to walk that's either different or just a little dissimilar than my brothers?
Yeah, I think it goes back to your point of each of us has our own personality as much as we share the common love of soccer. And it is called soccer, by the way, for all my fans out there. But I always say it like this: my oldest brother, if we were in the mall and we were all 2 years old, bring us back to 2 years old. If we were in the mall, and I don't know why this sticks with me, but you know those little square tiles on the ground?
Yeah.
If you say, Zach, stand in that square tile, he wouldn't move overnight. He'd stand there and wouldn't move. If you say, Jake, stand in that square tile, he'd probably play hopscotch between one or the other and like do a little jig or something. If you said, Caleb, stand in that square tile, I am climbing through the clothes racks, I'm going into the changing room. Like I was just that kid. Like I can't help it.
Got it.
I wouldn't let you out of my sight. Like I would probably scare you a little bit, but I just kind of do my own thing. So I think, as much as I was dragged along, probably because they didn't trust me to be home alone, I started to create my own path from an early age. And again, I didn't realize that I was doing that until really recently. I always felt like I was just kind of in the shadows and had to make a huge spotlight for myself. But when I look back, I played lacrosse, I played basketball, tennis, track, I mean, a bunch of different sports. And the one thing that I did that neither of my brothers did was I was in musicals as well. So growing up, I loved chorus. I tried out for the high school chorus, ended up getting in. I think my most famous role was in like 8th or 9th grade. I was the genie in Aladdin, blue-faced and everything. And it was just fun, right? It was something that was different, but at the same time, it was just unapologetically me. And it reminded me that, again, as much as I can do things and keep up with my brothers, I can also kind of do things for my own. And then
That's cool.
The podcast as well. Mental health is kind of my lane, and
That's
I
really
think
cool.
they know it, but they support me in it too, which is cool. That was unexpected support. That actually sounded really poor. It was not unexpected support. It was just unexpected that they accepted it so quickly, because it is such a strange and scary topic that most of the men in my family have kind of just sucked it up for our entire life, where I was just like, I'm not, I'll suck it up, but I'm going to do something about it as well.
Very fair. Very fair. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I also appreciate both of you guys sharing. I feel like there's been a lot of good vulnerability so far this episode, and that's awesome and always appreciated. You guys have talked on different people, different characteristics between brothers. Mike, you mentioned different love languages. So I think particularly on the receiving side, and that resulting maybe in different motivation. A certain coaching style might work really well for one person, and it may not work well for another, even within a family. Caleb mentioned on that note, forgetting of the work that you put in and just being kind of almost confused when good things were happening. And I think that speaks volumes to something that I've seen both of you firsthand do, which is embrace the hard things. And so even across the different characteristics, the personalities, the love languages, I know Mike has always been a fan of the harder workouts. I know that Caleb, I've seen you and Zach and Jake embrace the harder practices, or, you guys always had the longest running motor on the soccer pitch. You could run forever. That was kind of almost your family legacy for a little bit at Liverpool. I want to ask, what are those characteristics that kind of fuel that embracing of the hard things and almost making it feel, I guess, a little more automatic or effortless, to where you can forget some of the work that's being put in? And that's not to say you're not working, but it just comes a little bit more naturally, I think, for both of you guys, might be fair to say. And so beyond just brothers, but people, teammates, leaders, followers, in the workplace, on the field, what characteristics kind of lead to that healthy growth and embrace for you guys?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. And it's funny that I get asked it quite often, but not in the manner that you asked me. I get asked more like why do you do the things you do, or like why do you continue to do something that takes 10 years to get good at, like basically why do you do challenging things when you strip it down. And I always answer because that's what I do. Like there
Right.
really is
Right.
no other way around it. You
Yep.
you either look for the easy way out or you just embrace the suck. I heard
Yep.
that the other day in a podcast. They were just like, embrace the suck. Like I'm going to put that on the back of a t-shirt. But it's true, right? And I think in that instance, the suck is the process. And again, as cliche as it sounds, you do really have to fall in love or already be in love with the process of what you're doing. Because if you don't enjoy the day in and day out, if you don't enjoy the failures, the learning experiences, and I'm not saying enjoy, it's like, yes, I failed at work today, or like, let's go, my boss thinks I'm terrible. Like that, not like that. I'm talking about like if you fall short of your goal by if your goal is to raise $1,000 and you're short by 100, or if your goal is to run a sub 4 minute mile and you're at 4:05, can you forgive yourself? Can you analyze? Can you figure out what went right, what went wrong? Can you figure out if you overestimated yourself, underestimated yourself? Like all those technicalities, those little intricacies. I think that's what keeps me around for the long game, knowing that like I can wake up tomorrow with a clean slate, no matter what happened today. And it's really on me. I can choose to wake up and dwell on the things that I did poorly yesterday, or I can continue to build upon the things that went really well the day before. And it's just so rewarding when you can start to stack 3, 4, 5 days, weeks, months of just positivity and good things happening after the
100%.
other, to then all of a sudden have one bad day just slam you in the face and remind you that you are still human, you're still on earth, you're allowed to make mistakes. And I speak like I'm perfect at it. I am far from perfect at it. I have just learned to be okay with the 1, 2, 3, 4 bad days, because I know there's going to be double the amount of good days. And I've seen it. I've seen it with my family members. I've experienced it with myself. And there really is wisdom and knowledge in age. And I've spent a lot of time with both sets of my grandparents lately. I'm beyond blessed to have all 4 of my grandparents still alive at 24, and just that's another topic in itself that I'll just get into quick. It was one thing to like be kid friends with your grandparents and have them spell things out in front of you because you were too dumb to know what they were talking about. But then on the flip side, again, I can't speak on how blessed I am to still have all of them around, to now be adult friends with them. They swear in front of me now. I was like, what the hell is, like, grandma, come on now, what are we doing? And my grandpa's just over in the chair laughing. But that's what I'm saying. Like talking to them, knowing that they've gone through horrible world events, horrible personal events, just whatever. If they can wake up and put a smile on their face at 80 something, I won't do that to grandma by giving out her actual age. At 80 something, who am I to wake up and just say today's going to suck at 24, you know?
I was over here talking. I forgot I tapped the mute button by accident, but I hadn't said anything significant yet. But man, I love all that. I love everything you said there, and I think it's important. Even the grandparents piece in particular. That is, I don't know if many people understand how valuable it is to have your grandparents, or an older family member in your life at an adult age. The way our brains process information, the way we're able to retain things and make them applicable to our daily lives, like it is invaluable to have your grandparents in your life. So I mean, I love that for you. That is awesome. Especially when it comes to doing the hard things. Like you said, they have a roadmap. That's what it is. They have a roadmap that we can now understand. Like as kids, it's like, oh, okay, like I'm going to see grandma and grandpa. They're going to spoil me. Like I'm going to get presents. They're going to make us the best dinner ever. Like this is all the cool stuff. But then you go through that transitional phase of, wow, you're really smart. Wow, this life that you lived has been amazing, and you have the blueprint that I need to avoid some of these pitfalls that are going to come. Not if they come, but that are going to come, that I'm going to run into. So man, I think that's awesome to talk about that. But Nick, to jump back to your point of why I do the hard things, man, I honestly really don't. The best answer I can come up with is early on at a young age, it was to escape reality. That's why I did it. I did it because it's a little ironic. Being a runner, like I would run away from problems. Like that was my escape. I could go out, I could run hard for an hour, just be out there. And even though I would be amongst teammates, my mind would be free. It would feel as if nothing else mattered. I'm out here. Nick, we've talked about this plenty of times. I'm here now. This is what I have. I'm gonna be happy with this. Like this is the current space and place that I'm in. And I didn't have a name for it, or I wouldn't have been able to say that years ago. But again, talking to you, having this podcast in this outlet, I'm very, very grateful to have that mental note in my head now. Even when I do, whether it's work now or if I'm in the gym now, I'm coaching. So if I get to coach my kids, even when they frustrate me sometimes, I still take the approach of, I'm here now. These are my guys. This is the team, the family that we have. I'm happy with this. I'm happy with this because fill in the blank. And I'll just kind of leave it at that, because there are so many becauses that you can have, so many whys that you can fill in that blank with. So those are the two big things. And then I think my brain has just honestly, it short circuited. At some point, I couldn't tell you when it was. Like the hard things are fun. Like I enjoy doing the hard things, like feeling like I'm competing with myself. It is that point of falling in love with the process, enjoying the journey, being there. My brain has truly short circuited, and I don't know what I would do if I didn't do hard things. I would feel like I'd be wasting my days. So like you said, to wake up, put a smile on your face, go out, enjoy the day, to accomplish a task. Like I resonate with all those things. And I guess those are the reasons that I do those hard things. Like it's fun. It really is.
Yeah, and I think as lifelong athletes, we have like this innate characteristic of just 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. even later, just fill your day. Like
1,000%.
I always found that I got into more trouble when I had an hour to waste. Mm-hmm. Like I either say I got in trouble or I got way too good at Call of Duty, and I didn't want to be that. I got told to touch grass the other day. That was not fun. I was actually destroying, but at the same time, it kind of hit me. I looked at my watch. I was like, 3 hours. Good Lord. Like, go touch grass, kid. He's right.
That's funny.
But I think from a young age, we do just get up, go about our routine. It just becomes habit. That, at least for me, when COVID hit and the habit was broken, like I didn't have soccer to fall back on to escape reality, as you mentioned, fantastically put. I was like, what the F am I supposed to do now? Yeah. And I feel, again, very lucky that I had that experience before my sport was gone, because I had some time to prepare. I had a little buffer zone, but it still was tough because I think I felt like I lost my sport. And I think a lot of us did before it was gone. So then, rather than focusing on solely winning, it was still a very big part of what I wanted to do was win, but like solely winning or feeling like I had this perfection to uphold, I just went out and played, man. Like I just went out and enjoyed it. I was like, you have X amount of games left. You don't know what that number is, but one day you're not going to wake up and be a competitive soccer player anymore. So just enjoy it while it's lasting rather than try and make it last to enjoy it. That was kind of the little switch that I did.
Hey, hang on? Will you say that one more time? So we actually are compiling a list of quotes that we gather over the episodes, and anything that, so whatever that last thing you said, like I'm still trying to process it. It was, you don't know when your last is going to be.
I think I said I don't know what I said. I just spoke. I think I said you don't know when your last competitive game is going to be. So rather than playing to make it last, something like that. And then I don't
That
know.
was
I
it.
just spoke.
Nat, we're gonna have to go back and find that. All right, that is a
Wait, if
quality
she's
quote
here, you can hit bookmark. If you're listening, you can hit bookmark, and it takes you right back here on
Yes,
Riverside. If you're still
we
out there,
want that. We want that. That was a really good one. That was a really good one.
I try.
It's just a natural producer of quotes. That is awesome. No, I agree. That was a good one, and we'll bookmark it and get back to it. We're going to hopefully be using those.
But it's true though. Like I just stopped playing to just be perfect. I just let the game come to me, and I tried to I tried to be Rafiki, for better or for worse. I tried to pass some wisdom down to those younger players. Like, you're going to score own goals. In my case, as a defender. Whoa! Thanks for the thumbs up, Nick. You're going to score own goals. As a defender, you're gonna hit game winning goals. Like, your time is gonna come. Just don't rush it. Again, fall in love with the process. Fall in love with the good games, the bad games, the games that you play every minute, the games that you don't play a minute, the time in the trainer's room. And to kind of get back to mental health, I'm going to tie this back to something way at the beginning. We were talking about just like figuring out, I guess, mental health with the resources not being available or not knowing that they're available. I always like to bring it back to physical health. One, because they are so closely related, but two, because it is the easiest visual that I can think of personally, and it's helped a lot of people. So we don't go to the gym all the time for rehab, right? There are instances where you get injured and you have to go to rehab, but there are times you just want to get stronger, you just want to get faster, you want to put on some weight, you want to lose some weight, you name it. We don't wait for something to happen all the time to go to the gym. We go, we run, we train, you practice for the games, right? I feel like it's the opposite with mental health. And I haven't been able to figure out why, right? We, especially in my instance, we wait for the anxiety attack. We wait for the OCD to be so overpowering. We wait for the athletic identity to present itself, rather than knowing just historically and statistically that these things have a possibility of happening to me, just like tearing an ACL does, right? Physical. Why don't we do preventative care for our mental health? I mean, we wake up and we take vitamins in the morning. We get allergy shots. We do all these things for our physical health. I'm not saying to go take medicine for your mental health and preventative. I mean, again, to each their own. You have to figure out what works for you. But why don't we practice our mental endurance, our mental stamina, our capacity for anger, like what you name it? There are ways to do that, right? And again, I'm not a professional, so I can't sit here and run anyone through those ways, but there are apps, there are therapists, there are psychiatrists, counselors, doctors. That was just a short list of people literally paid to help you. So why not utilize their professionalism and get that preventative care that, again, it might never happen to you, but so, like I said, you might never tear your ACL either. It doesn't mean you still don't work out your legs and your knees and those muscle groups. To me, it's that simple. But at the same time, I realized that it's really not that simple. And I had to go through those experiences in order to be able to speak on it. So
I was going to go a different direction, but that was a phenomenal point. And I think there's one paper that we covered in a college class once. So I got the chance to TA and really dive in with the teacher himself, who was a part of the chapter that they had wrote. And I think it's interesting on the idea of, if you're going to tear an ACL or like this bad thing is going to happen. And so the paper surrounded this idea of terror management theory. More or less, this theory kind of posits when you think about death, anxiety follows. And the more salient those thoughts are, or the more salient, like mortality is salient, the more anxiety it drives. Which I think kind of is interesting because in the paper they found that mindfulness mitigated that. And so it doesn't bother people who are very accepting, in other words, when those negative things happen. And everything that you're saying about, we wait for that anxiety or that panic attack to happen. I know for me, the biggest thing that helped transition me to a state of being able to deal with hard times and be more resilient was that acceptance. And I hear it in some of your guys' points as well, with the idea of going way back to, can you honestly analyze yourself? And are you okay with it? And we're much more vulnerable, it sounds like all three of us, than we might have been 5-10 years ago. I know Mike and I have had conversations revolving around sport and the idea of comparing ourselves to others. And like, at what point can you accept that this is my day one, and that might be their day like 100? And so comparing isn't really like worth. That's out of my control. In the same way that being mindful and accepting, death is kind of out of your control. Being accepting of whatever kind of gets thrown at you is helpful. And it doesn't necessarily get at your point of proactive working out the brain as much. There's still a lot more like proactive things you can do. But it is super interesting to me that a lot of research has shown that it will mitigate the effects. And so if I put all three of us in a really bad environment, whichever one of us is more mindful, even in the same environment, will experience less of those negative things. And I feel like acceptance is almost like a fuel to be resilient in those moments.
That's good.
Which is really hard when you talk about what you guys alluded to with leaving your sport, leaving your job, a relationship. Like, when that is out of your control and you are not in a place where you can honestly accept it, those are the transitions that are so hard. COVID hit so many people so hard because they weren't able to accept it. Everything that they thought they had, their reality kind of got flipped on its head. But there were other people who found the joy and kind of accepted, like, look, it happened. I'm here. What can I do next? And being able to be in that moment, as Mike said, with, we're not too focused on the past or the present. Sure, they're important, but right now is really important too.
Yeah, I don't know if it was just me, but I had this toxic character trait when you said if you put all three of us in a room, I was like, that's it, I'm winning. Whatever it is, I'm winning. Like, you guys are losing. And then you hit the punchline, I was like, I'm an asshole. But no, to that point, it goes back to being completely open and honest with yourself. And it's impossible to do that all the time. It's exhausting if you do, or if you tried. But just understanding and being in the headspace of knowing that you're deserving of that type of love, right? And it is such a different type of self-love when you can look at yourself in the mirror and be like, wow, you were an asshole today. Like, why? Like, really, why? Not like, oh, because so-and-so said something. There's usually a root cause. Right. And if there's not, understanding there's not. Or, hey, you were in a really good mood today. Was it simply because it's the first time the sun has set past 6:30? Or is it because you're actually clicking in life? Like, once you can understand that there's complexity to almost every decision you make, and knowing that you may never figure it out, at least you can try, or really figuring out what it was. So again, you can kind of stack those good days. That's fantastic. And it's come for me at a much slower rate than things usually come for me. And that was a tough pill to swallow. Because, like I said, I have been very lucky to pick up some things quickly from watching my older brothers, from their patience with me and teaching me before I go out and perform on the soccer pitch. But I went to therapy in college. Oh God, it all blurs together now. That's bad. I'm not that old. Probably junior, senior, grad year. At the end of junior year, senior year, and grad year. No, senior year. I thought about a junior year, did not go. I wish I did, but can't go back. It took me until my second therapist, so almost a year and a half later, to actually have a difference in my life. And it wasn't because of the therapist. My therapist was awesome. She did all the things you're supposed to. Now that I look back at it, she let me lead the conversation. She's fantastic. I can't speak highly enough about Oswego's therapy program they have. But it was personal things. Like, I didn't think I was deserving. Like, I didn't. And it's hard to say out loud. But again, once you get that honest and real with yourself, you can kind of be like, wait a minute, I am deserving. Like, that goes back to what I was saying at the beginning. Like, oh, everything just happens to you. So, like, why are you at therapy? Like, it'll figure itself out. Like, it took me 50 some odd therapy sessions to understand, like, I'm deserving of this healing. And ever since I've had that, it's just been a whole new world. And again, some therapy sessions, I mean, we talk about golf and PB&J sandwiches, like, they all don't have to be heavy, but then some therapy sessions, like, you're fighting back tears, you're understanding things about yourself, other people in your life, different perspectives, why they do the things they do, why you do the things you do. Can you guys intermingle? Can you like, you really start to figure out a lot about yourself, but also just about life in general. Like, that's just the way it's going to be. And you can either let it bother you or you can fix it. That's been my biggest thing. Like, my sphere of influence, my sphere of control. I have toxic empathy. Come to find out, that's a thing. I'm a toxic empath, which is like, I feel other people's emotions too much that they become my own, like a chameleon. Yeah, I didn't know that was a thing, but it makes sense now when I go back and look at my life. And toxic empathy it's tiring. I don't know if it's a technical term, but that's what we've dubbed it for my my self-healing purposes. Like, just whatever the energy is in the room, I usually adapt to it. And that as soon as the energy's gone, I go back to my hotel room if I'm at an event, or I go to my room at the end of the night after dinner with my family. It's just like my energy's gone and I have no time to put to myself, and that is not healthy. So we're working on that currently.
I think I've never heard that term before, but after you have detailed it, it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. Like, I have plenty of friends who are empaths, very, very strong empaths, and they feel other people's emotions and their experiences very heavily, almost to the same degree that you probably do, to where it starts to almost hurt them. Like you said, like you don't find that time for yourself, or your energy is all the way zapped, and you don't have the energy to, whether it's reflect on the day, take some time to figure out the good in your day, the bad in your day, what you are looking forward to the next day, and your brain kind of goes to this autopilot state of being for a little while, until you maybe are able to refresh for a minute. So no, I get that. I get that completely. Like I said, I have plenty of friends who have detailed that to me, or described that. I never understood it until you were able to even describe it a little bit more. So no, that is awesome. I want to ask now. It sounds like you have something else. Go ahead before we move past that.
I was just going to kind of say too, like, it does hurt the toxic empath, and I say hurt and very lightly. It's very strenuous on the toxic empath, as much as it is on the person whose emotions you're adapting, if you look at it that way. If I am always happy around always happy people, that's not always good, right? You can't always only experience one emotion. I was reading a book by Ivy Watts. She's a phenomenal author. She wrote about her personal life, and I can't remember the name of the person whose poem, Veronica something, I think, whose poem it was, but it said, after a while, you learn that even sunshine burns if you get too much. And I was like, damn, like, that was tough. Like, if I'm always adapting to the positive energy in the room, I might not be being my authentic self. And therefore, the person whose energy I'm adapting to might be missing out on something that they need to hear, that needs to be, again, my word of the episode is juxtaposition, but it's true. Like, you need that variety and that flavor in a room and to experience life to the fullest. So as much as me adapting to the room and kind of fitting in and vibing with the energy is awesome, I learned that I have to be myself no matter how hard that is. Like, yes, sometimes myself is adapting to the energy of the room. I'm not saying just walk in the room and like flip everyone off, like, know your social setting. I'm saying, like, just be who you are and understand that some people are going to vibe with it. Some people are not. Right. And that's just the way it goes. So.
No, that's good. That's good. I wanna double back to some questions that Nick wrote prior to us getting in here, and we've danced around this for a little bit, but the topic of support systems seem to be very, very relevant to this conversation. And Caleb, for you, what are what do you think are some good components, whether it be of your support system or an ideal support system? And it's hard to say for people in general, but we'll say specifically for you, what do some of those support systems look like? And if you don't mind sharing, what are times where you didn't maybe feel as supported and you wish you had, whether it be someone to talk to, someone to listen, someone to just ask if you were okay at that point?
Yeah, I think I have a lot of support in my life that I didn't necessarily realize 4 years ago when all this was happening.
Yeah,
I felt like a burden. I felt like, oh, this is my problem. I'm going to figure it out between me and the people, like I said, that are paid to help me figure it out. Maybe a couple close friends. But religion is a very large support system in my life. More so, it was growing up. And then I always say, like, college is a blur. 4 years.
yep,
I
it
was
is.
like a holiday churchgoer. I'll say I went on
Gotcha.
the main holidays, and then after church, I was like, no, I need to reconnect because it is a blessing. So I've really gotten back into Christianity and my faith, and that's been a blessing. I've actually driven over to the church a couple times when I've been struggling and just said a quick prayer, or asked Father for a quick prayer, and that's helped me out a
That's
ton.
awesome.
Again, we talked about it in the beginning: family, massive support system, and being an adult in your family now. You can just speak candidly, right? You don't
Right.
have to,
Right.
I mean, you still have to speak with respect.
Right.
I'm not advocating, like I said, flipping off the world, but you can just approach your parents and be like, hey, like,
Yeah.
I'm an adult now. Like, this is bothering me. Can we figure this out together? Like,
Right.
I'm not going to be the same kid I was, or, hey, like, some aspects of my life, I still need to act like the kid. I'm just not there yet. Like, I'm in this weird position. I describe it as like, not fully ready to be on my own, but know that I need to get there. So we're working towards it, type thing. But family, religion, my coach, at college, he was like a parent away from home. Different relationship though. I mean, I've never had one, but I describe him as like a step parent.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I could go to him and then, like, not take his advice and not offend him,
I got
like,
you. Yeah. Yep.
that's at least my vibe with it. And again,
Right.
that's not to speak down of any step parents. I know plenty of people in my life that have phenomenal step parents, and
Yeah.
kudos to that, but that's a whole different episode.
Right.
So my coach, my closest friends, and then just my girlfriend, man. I didn't realize how much I mean, I always know how much she meant to me, but how much she influenced me, and how much, I'm going to bite my tongue for this. I'm going to regret saying this, how much she's right, hopefully that gets me some brownie points. But, like, a lot of the times after the fact, I look back and I'm like, I listened, but I should have truly taken that advice.
Right.
And it's one of those
Right.
live and learn experiences. But now every time I go to do something that's like a big life decision, or that could have positive or negative consequences, I ask those support systems, right? And some depending on the question, different ones hold different weight. But most of the time, for the really difficult situations, it comes down to my girlfriend, my family, and my God, and I usually end up in the right decision. But to answer the second part of your question, when's the time I felt alone or like I didn't have a support system? Man, I guess it's good that I'm struggling to figure out this question.
Very much
But
so.
I mean,
Very much so.
there's plenty of times where you feel
Right.
like, oh, I have to take this on alone, or like,
Yeah.
this is my
Yeah.
struggle, like, this is my story, like, this is, it's me. It's very much me. I feel like I put myself in that situation of being alone
Yep.
rather than
Yep.
actually being alone. And
Right.
again, this is personal to me. Like, after I had my anxiety attack on field, I kind of just went in my room and then debated going to therapy by myself rather than asking those support system. Like, hey, do
Right.
you think this is a good idea? Can you help me? Will one of you come with me? Like, again, I cut myself off from the world rather than the world cut me off. And I don't know if anyone else shares those personal experiences, but if you do, or if you're going through them, or if you have, the best thing I've ever done is opened up to someone who's just non-judgmental. And for me, that was my therapist. I forgot to say therapy is another support system, but I kind of just, I group that in with my close friends and family. But
Got it.
just open it up in a judgment-free zone. You can literally say whatever you want, and they're legally obligated not to say anything unless, from what I can put together, you're a danger to yourself or others. So again, that goes back to my flipping off the world reference. I don't recommend that. But just open it up in a place where it's just you,
Yeah.
4 walls, a couch, and a counselor, and you just get to say whatever you want. It's not that scary, but
Right.
At the end of the day, if you're a simple person like I am, that's what it is. And what happens in those 4 walls stays there if you want it, or you can bring it to mend the mind, and it can come right here like I'm doing. So
Come on, bring it on. We love it. We love to have whoever it is. And we ask all the time, y'all. We seriously mean this. If y'all have any questions, comments, I don't know if we'll take it as far as having you on as a guest just yet. Yeah, we gotta learn different temperaments here, make sure we're choosing the right people. But sure, questions, comments, concerns. Like if we don't have the answer here, we would love to help you find the answer, get you connected to a resource or somebody who may offer a different perspective or solution for you. We've done 17 or 18 episodes at this point, and again, while Nick and I may not have the answers ourselves, I'm sure that one of our guests, we are more than positive somebody can help you out along the way. We all think so differently. So ask questions, please. Ask us questions, comment, tell us what you like, what you dislike, so we can continue to improve what we're doing here and continue to get information out. Yeah, like this is for the love of everybody and for everybody's mental health and wellness as a whole.
I think so. You guys hit 2 things that I want to bring up real quick. We'll kind of got maybe 2 or so final questions for Caleb. And so one of them, you mentioned sometimes these self-inflicted feeling alone. You're cutting yourself off. It's not the world cutting you off, but in the moment, it does feel like it's something that you have to do. And I think that really emphasizes that we often are our biggest critic. So many people, I hold myself to a much higher standard than I will hold other people to, which is okay, but it can be overwhelming. And in those moments where it does overwhelm you, it really is a nice look in the mirror and an evaluation. So kind of like you had said, looking and deciding what would be good for me in this moment. It's easy as our own critics to analyze what leads to mistakes and how we want to be better next time, but we often don't analyze our success and what leads to that success. Maybe we take it for granted. Maybe we just, that should be expected. We expect great things out of ourselves, which is all right, but success does leave clues. And that brings me to my question for both of you guys, which is, if there was a legacy that you were hoping to leave, or like a characteristic that you really hope that you embody when you're in the room, what would it be?
That's a curveball. That's not where I expected that question to go. I might have to stall here and just speak. Wow.
I'll filibuster for. If you need a second to think, do your thing. But I'll filibuster for you for a minute if you need to.
Yeah, well, he had me totally on a different train of thought, and now I'm just like, wham! I mean, it's been different. Again, I feel like it's changed throughout my entire life, and it used to be to make my family proud, and it still is, but that's not like my overarching theme. Like, that's still there. Like, you obviously want to make your family proud, but I think right now it's just it's 2. I think the first one is, you could say, like, here comes Caleb Munsky. He tried his best. Take it or leave it. Like, he's not perfect. He's not going to make every mistake in the world on the flip side of that, but he gave you his all. He tried his best. And then the second part of that is, he led with love while he was doing it. It's so easy to let just immature little things get in the way of love, whatever that looks like for you. So I think it's, here comes Caleb Munsky. He tried his best and he led with love while doing it.
That's good. That's good. That's good. Has if there are maybe a handful of people, 1, 2, or 3, that you can think of who have either impacted you to want to do that, or they have left that same impact on your life, who would those people be?
It's tough to pick a handful when your backpack is just overflowing with people who've impacted your
Facts.
life.
It's facts.
Wow. I really think one of them was my coach. And I think he just hit me with all these truth bombs, whether I needed to hear him or not, that it was just like, hey, he's telling me this because he loves me, and he's doing it in a way that's gentle enough where it's not going to destroy me, you know? He taught me the responsibility that comes with leadership. He taught me the difficulties that come with leadership, but he also showed me the abundance of rewards and self-growth that comes with it. So my coach is one of them. Dan Kane is his name. I haven't said his name yet. Shout out Coach Kane. I mean, both my parents and my brothers, they, again, every day just show me what hard work looks like, what sacrifice looks like. And it's one of those things, until you have to start paying your own bills, you don't realize what sacrifice looks like. In the monetary world, obviously there's other ones. My dad he's a firefighter. He'll get home on 2 hours of sleep and then drive me halfway across the state to go play a soccer game. Like that's leading with love right there. And my mom will do the same, but just that's leading with love. And then my girlfriend, obviously, dude, I can't pick three, man. There's just so many. I've had so many close teammates.
Wherever you stall out at. If you want to, if this is your role,
I mean, we could do an hour long. We could just start the episode over from here, and I could literally just name.
So what we'll do is at the end of this, we'll have a roll credits on this episode, and we'll say this is all. Look, we'll have our.
No, I'll just say this: those people know who they are, truly, because I've made it a point to let them know. And I think that's important too. If you're sitting here thinking, I got such a long list of people, do they know? If they don't know, you should tell them. They might need to hear it. They might need that motivation as well. To those people who I'm talking to, if you think it's you, it's you. It's that simple.
That's good.
Where I thought Nick was going with this, by the way, was when he was talking about kind of self-deprecation and cutting yourself off from the world. I always attribute that to unfamiliar versus familiar pain.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is, like, we become so used to saying, like, oh, he's too fat, talking about ourselves, or he's too skinny, he should be faster, he should, can't. Like, it's so much easier to let the negative thoughts in than it is to remind yourself, hey, again, in your case, I didn't always run a 4-minute mile, or I didn't always sell 80 pairs of shoes in a day in Fleet Feet. I don't know. I'm pulling a number out of thin air. That's the familiar pain. Yeah. The self-deprecation, the negative self-talk. We know it's going to be painful, but we know what that's going to look like, right? The unfamiliar pain is the opposite side. It's the going to therapy to figure out the root causes of the negative self-talk. We have no idea what that's going to look like. And that is terrifying. Even as someone who's been to therapy, it's scary, but it's been the most rewarding, most beautiful process of my life. And I think if more people chose that unfamiliar, that seemingly dark, scary path, they'll find that there are so many stars on that path that light it up. And you are going to walk through a dark tunnel time and time again. But if you choose the road less traveled, in this sense, the unfamiliar pain, in the long run, it's going to be so much more beneficial. At least it has been for me.
That's good. I mean, Caleb, that was a phenomenal answer, man. I think that your points, the points that you made were spot on. I don't think anybody could argue any of that. One, just because it's personal to you, but also when it comes to the legacy that you want to leave, like, that is something that has to be ingrained in you. I don't know if legacy can necessarily be taught. Like, that is something that develops over time and that people find in their hearts, like, hey, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to leave behind. As we kind of transition away from that question, though, and this can be really asked to all of us as we have started podcasting here. What is something that you've come across that you maybe thought was normal, unique to you, something that you didn't expect to be common amongst other people, whether that be something that people struggle with, that they like, they dislike, like whatever that looks like. Have you had any experiences like that?
Yeah, there's been a handful of surface level things that I think I'll just generalize and say humans as a whole desire for, like the need to feel loved, like just,
Yeah, yeah,
not to get too sciencey, but like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, all those things, you can fill them right up in order. But what I think is really interesting is the closer you get to the top of that little triangle or hierarchy or whatever you want to say, and the closer you get to the top, the more selfish you can be with your decision making, or selfless, depending on which way you choose to go. But I think the one thing that I thought rang true to only me was the need to remain in touch with your intuition. And
sounds
that's
good.
actually really common. And once you figure out that I'm acting the best I know how based on my intuition and my judgment, Mike is doing that, Nick is doing that, all of our friends, all of our family. And it's not always like there's not always malice in it. Like I'm not just being rude to be rude. If it comes across that way to someone, it's just how I grew
Yeah,
up. It's what I know. But
right.
I think when you are in touch with your intuition, you can start to figure out your purpose in life and your why. And like we've talked about before, what fills your cup. Um, you can say, okay, where's the missile? Where's the missing puzzle piece that I'm qualified to fill? If that makes sense, because that's what life is. Like, you guys are now a piece in my puzzle, and you were qualified to fill it in a specific way, whether you knew it or not. I think I'm a puzzle piece in many people's life. Sometimes I've tried to take that piece, looks like it fits, and just pound it in there and go, oh, beautiful. And no, you got to start from the beginning. But the more and more I've talked to professionals, to mental health advocates, to athletes, to businessmen and women, you name it, we've talked to a bunch of people over on our podcast, much like you guys have. You guys have a wide variety of guests. The one thing that remains the same is we're all searching for our why. And once we find it, for whatever season of life we're in, we're all figuring out and stumbling towards using it the best way we know how. And I thought that was specific to me. I thought I just had like this freakish obsession with wanting to figure out why I'm here and what I'm supposed to do. But it seems like that's a more common theme. So if that's what you feel, you're not alone. We're all trying to figure out why and stumble our way forward doing it.
No, that's good. That's good. Nick, what about you, man?
Oof. Um, it's a tough one. I think that,
Haha, taste of your own medicine.
yeah, I know. I lost for words a little bit, but I guess in the light of like a takeaway, I don't know if completely unique to me, but something that I found out and I see more and more in other people as we go is like this idea that I guess I don't know how to word it. We're all kind of attracted to seeing people's eyes light up. Like that is something that I know that I have always really enjoyed. And I know that even coming into this podcast, how I would have verbalized what I was looking to do, what my intent was to get people on who had something that made their eyes light up. And I wanted to understand more about why. Dive in with what creates that passion and what is it like. And throughout that, mixed with the idea of focusing more on the process than the outcome, particularly in conversations, having a conversation to have a conversation, to explore and be curious, rather than to get to any end destination or get something from someone, is the reason that we started saying, let's do half an hour to 45 minutes. And our episodes have mostly been over an hour. And so being able to
Sorry,
really
Nat.
explore that, yeah, something for the ending, but being able to really sit in those passions, explore them, and do it in a way where there is no destination, just to sit in the experience of passion has been something that's like very unique.
Yeah.
And I've noticed across most of our guests, if not all of our guests, I would say all, everyone seems to like that. We seem genuinely interested in what each other have to say. And
Yeah.
it's always more of a, dang, we need to cut this for time's sake, than it is that the conversation ever fizzles out. And that's something that I don't see in everyday life. And so,
Right.
I knew that I was curious, but finding that everyone kind of, as humans, like Caleb said, has this enjoyment in seeing people's eyes light up, I think it's been really cool.
No, that's good, and I think your point segues nearly perfectly into the same thing that I've discovered, or a very similar thing that I've discovered, is that we all want to see other people win. We all want to see other people win, and there is a what's the word I'm looking for? There was a level of authenticity and genuineness that people um, that we all have for one another. I think that everybody we've had on the podcast, and Caleb, I'm sure you've experienced the same thing. Everybody is so supportive of whether it be a dream, an action, um, just the journey. That's what it really comes down to. Everybody is so supportive of the individual journey that whoever is speaking is on. And that, to me, for a long time, I thought that I just want to see people win, or not that I just want to see people win, but I wanted to see people win more than the person next to me. Like, I genuinely mean it when I say I want to see you do well. Nick, I want to see you achieve everything that you want, whether the feelings were reciprocated or not. Caleb, I hope that you accomplish everything that's on your to-do list in life. I want those things, whether you all felt the same way. But from talking over the last 18 episodes, 20 plus hours, I have 100% realized that it's not just me. The people that you and Caleb, you said it earlier, the people that you surround yourself with, they all won't be the same, and maybe necessarily shouldn't be the same. But in this particular instance, everybody is the same in this regard. We all want our journeys to be successful. I won't say we don't want them to not be hard or to be challenging or for us to overcome obstacles, but the success at the end, everybody that we've come across, I've realized that and it is it's held true every episode, every single episode.
Yeah, I think that's really well put, and I think the journey is like a really nice way to put it. I like the language there. Before we kind of wrap up, I do want to hand it back over to Caleb and give him a chance to talk a little bit about maybe some of the differences in what they do over at Make Mental, and just give our viewers a chance to kind of learn more and go on their journey with Caleb.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Nick. Thanks for the little time at the end here. This is always strange because you do want to talk about it, but you don't. I don't know. It's that weird gray area. But I think to quickly touch on both yours and Michael's point, the destination is the conversation. I think that's kind of what you guys were talking about. Like, for you, like, we have to stop because we have production that we have to do. Like, we have time limits, we have attention spans. Like, it's this whole thing. But if you can get lost in, like I do in Call of Duty, for anyone who was listening earlier, if you can get lost in hours of things that you enjoy, it's worth the energy. It's worth the time spent. And if you can do it with people who are genuinely curious, judgment free, and just here for that conversation, like you guys said, that's what we do. I mean, essentially, that's what we do at Make Mental. To lead to that point, we have on people that have had different life experiences. Although some may sound similar, it's very individualistic. We pride ourselves on community storytelling. Sometimes that gets a negative rep, storytelling, but there are true stories out there. If we wander away from the fiction section of Barnes and Noble, you can find the nonfiction. We pride ourselves on that, and just really healing together. I mean, it's that simple. We all desire community I mean, we're social creatures. We love to know that we're either not struggling alone, that we could give advice to somebody, that we can help someone. Again, to Michael's point, that we can see them win. That's what we are at Make Mental. We're just a community of healing people in it together, trying to help each other heal. And again, we're all at different stages in our journeys, which makes it awesome. And it's, I mean, I have a blast. I'm somewhere right in the middle between the guests we've had on. If you can map it out on a timeline, there are people at the beginning of their healing journey, I like to call it, and there are people who are, I mean, the healing journey is infinite, but there are people who are so much further along than me in their healing journey. So I get that moment of enjoyment of sometimes having the advice to give, but more times than not, just truly learning about someone and trying to apply that to my own life. So that's what we are about at Make Mental. And yeah, you can join us if you feel like it, I guess. No pressure involved. So
Caleb, what is for the viewers? Give us your at names, your handles for everything, so we can make sure we get out all of the proper information, and we're able to tag you so people can find you easy.
yeah, it's just at Make Mental on Instagram and X. The first time I said it correctly, I think. And then we are Make Mental or Make Mental Podcast on Spotify and YouTube. I think we have both of them. If you search that up, we come up. Oh, Sweet. And Apple Podcasts for my Apple people.
Sweet. And yeah, 100%. I think there's a lot of similarities between the two, and it's cool to see, and it's been cool to learn from each other as we've reconnected and jumped on each other's podcasts as well. And so I hope the viewers get the same joy out of that. I do want to switch it to our final piece here today, which is just, we've got a week coming up. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll enjoy it to the best we can. What is something from today that stuck out and is something that you want to emphasize this week? It's just something along your journey, along your healing process, or it's just an emphasis. So we'll kind of go around the horn here. If you guys want to kick it off.
I mean, I could start if you guys would like.
Yeah, if you have one already teed up, go ahead.
Yeah, so I love this question. I've never been really asked this before outside my therapist, so you might have something going, Nick. I think it's like a blend of what we've been talking about, being mindful, really relying on my community, as Mike talked about, and then combining that with when you asked me if there was a handful of people that I could pinpoint that have been impactful on my journey. And I think it's what I'm going to practice this week is once a day, and I'll give myself Sunday off for some leeway because that'll get exhausting. But once a day, I'm going to reach out for 6 days to those people, right? And let them know what they've meant to me on my journey. Whether they need to hear it or not, it's just something that I would like to do. Yeah, I'm just going to reach out and tell those people who either need a virtual or physical hug from me that they mean a lot, and I appreciate them, a little mindfulness and grace at the same time.
That's good. That's good. Okay. Nick, you got one?
I do. Loosely connected with the journey talk that we've come down here towards the end. I think growing up, how I got information about people was listening. In school, it's a very unique environment that reflected on where you can get to know people by being in the room, because there's a guarantee that you're going to be in the room. And so one thing that I've never been good at, and Mike, you can attest to this, but when we're out and about in public settings, talking to people and being that extroverted voice is not natural to me. And so finding ways to engage in conversations and learn more about people's journey, have them be a part of mine, and see, what puzzle piece, big or small, that we can fill for each other, as Caleb put it, is something that I want to emphasize this week. Is just making those engagements and being a little bit more active, proactive in continuing to build my support system and offering support to others.
No, that's good. That's really good. I think it's important that we help each other on this journey. Whether it's a resource for one day, 1 hour, or it turns into a year or 10 years. You never know what the other person may offer. And it may not be anything at all, but what can you give is another thing that I think we can really capitalize on, or we should capitalize on just as a collective. But for me personally this week, Caleb, I'd have to agree with you. I think it's been a little while since I've done it, but just telling the people who I trust, who I love, who have been there for me, that I appreciate them, that I love them, that I value the time they've invested in me, the resource they've been, the conversations, the tough love, whatever it is for that individual person. But just telling them that, just because the seasonal, and I'll just use depression as the word here. That's a real thing. That's a real thing, and I think it's easy to get lost in that thought when the sun is out, when it's bright, and everything around you is cheery and becoming full of life again. But there are people who struggle in these seasons, so this may be a time that they need to hear from us most. So I think this would be a good time to spark that life into them, when it could easily be assumed and overlooked. So that is the direction that I'll be headed this week, kind of running parallel with you, Caleb.
And then one thing that just came onto my mind, Caleb does this on his podcast, Mike. He has a question that he asks people at the end.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw it to him and let him ask you. I got a chance to answer over there, but I am curious
Oh,
what
man.
your answer would be.
Oh, shoot. Okay. All right.
All right. Another curveball. He hit us with another one. All right. So now I got to switch minds here. Mike, we are at the end of our episode together, and I love to ask this question. If there was one person in the world right now, doesn't matter who it is, the first person that comes to your mind that you think needs a hug, who would you give that hug to in this very moment?
Oh, man. Us, easy one. Just right now, the first person that comes to mind, my youngest brother.
There you go.
Easy one. My youngest brother. He is senior in high school, coming up on the fourth quarter, getting ready to graduate. Life seems to be coming fast. He has college figured out and where he's going, but I can tell he is still overwhelmed by some of the choices that he has to make, and he's at that age where maybe there is a bit more expected of him than what should be for a child. Like, age does not determine you being an adult versus being a child. So right now, for him in particular, I think that's who I would give my hug to in this moment.
Well, I'm sure he feels that love. So that was beautiful.
I hope so.
I love that.
He'll be home. He'll be home in a couple hours. I assume it's a Friday night. They just finished exams.
Maybe you start off your week now. Maybe you just go give him that hug.
Maybe I will. So whenever he decides to roam on back in here, then I will give him a hug. I will give him a hug later this evening if I'm not asleep. So I got to get up at 5:30 a.m. to go run tomorrow, knock out some stuff with some guys. So yeah, if I'm not asleep, I'll get it to him. But if not, he'll just have to wait till tomorrow. We got practice. I'll see him then.
Well, thank you again, guys, for having me on. Nick, Mike, I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. This has been an awesome episode, Caleb. We appreciate you, man. Fighting with us through the location changes. Hey, real quick, free plug. If anybody can guess how many location changes we had in this episode, all right, we will have some sort of prize for you. You got to figure out who it was, where they were, make sure it's detailed. But this has been episode 17. Caleb, we appreciate you jumping on with us, spending the plus side of an hour and a half with us today. This has been a great episode, and I'm sure the listeners are in for a treat. If y'all made it this far, as always, like, subscribe, share, jump over to Make Mental, please, and show them some love. Like, subscribe, and share. We're putting this out here to hopefully create better communities, better environments, and just better relationships for people as a whole. So we're doing our part. You do your part. We appreciate y'all. It's all love from over here. Peace.